Yo, alright, we back in. Let's talk more audio stuff. Been out the loop for a minute. Life's getting a little hectic, but I'm going to try to get back into the routine of giving you the notebook. Alright, so I hope this angle's cool. Now, let's discuss something. This is like my own quote about today. Whatever happened to the days where we used to just make music and it wasn't complicated or over complicated? And I think like today, music gets to sound really good. Yes, we use digital recordings right now, which is kind of sterile and clean and kind of like lifeless a little bit, which is why people still make analog gear to go through and warm up stuff or, you know, whatever floats your boat or fits your recording and music making process. Uh, I want to say that it's just like overcomplicated with all the shit that we have now, including with the hardware. But the digital, I mean, the analog to digital conversion, all this, like, the bickering back and forth, what's better, tubes or FET compressors, or solid state versus this, and ba 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 ba. DSP versus the real thing, or the emulations versus the hardware. Things like everybody's like so anal about this shit. So I'm sitting here trying to like help people to like get out of the diluted mass thought of this shit. You know what I mean? And the gas syndrome, like trying to like spending the shekel to try to do this and do that. It's like, man, listen. All right, you have to slow down because you're like getting way ahead of yourself, and we all do it. You have to get what suits your needs. You know what I mean? You can't go out here like you can do whatever you want, but you should not go out here like getting all this crazy stuff when you only need a couple of things. Like in my case of production, all right, I don't need a giant analog console, all right, where I need the kicks on this channel and the snare on this and the ba 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 ba. I can actually do all that from the MPC for real. I could use the MPC as a DAW and or a production console. Now, granted, I have a mic that I need to use phantom power, and I have to go in the analog box and then in here, but that's fine. I can still get 24 bit recording. You know what I'm saying, at 48 or 41. You know what I mean? This is a nice box, but it's made for production. Now there is a lot of plugins inside, and it's like kind of like analog in nature, but it's really digital. And what we have to understand in this day and age, a recording is a sample, and a sample is a recording. That's always how it's been. If you take your vocals from a track and you chop it up, you go, oh, that's a sample. It's a vocal sample. No, you just took the recording again. Yeah, you reprocessed it. But a recording is a sample because the recording is the re-representation of what you just did on playback by whatever medium you recorded it to. So if you recorded the tape, that's your tape sample or your tape recording. Now we know samples degrade over time. That's where audio, the analog to digital, and the digital to analog comes in. When you go from analog to digital and digital to analog, and you keep going back in and out, in and out, in and out, that's when it degrades. If you have something going on in the analog realm, it does not degrade from no matter what you're going through, from this to that to this to that to this to that. If you got a patch based type thing going on where you can do a lot of routing, all right, it's not going to degrade. And if you do things from digital to digital, how can it degrade? It's in the same environment. You see what I mean? It's when you go from either or, when you start bouncing in between the two realms, that's when things start to degrade. You see what I mean? So that's where like the sample or the recording, the quality of things will degrade when you go in between the two. So from in here to hardware, from hardware to in here, and about the, you know what I mean? Whoa, it's a lot. You know what I mean? So you have to be careful, and like I said, you have to consider the MPC as a DAW. Now, like, let's get to the bullet points though. Now, if you want to get the processing, like, look at the diagram and on the screen here. You like in and outs, the big analog console, right? Well, a lot of our we use audio interfaces to go to our computer because that's basically our console. Okay, so uh, what do you have there? It's like a virtual analog thing. It's done by ones and zeros on a computer. It's not real. You see, but not all of us have the time, money, or space for a big analog console. But you can get a big analog console sound without one of those if you know what you're doing. Alright? Now, if you look on here, a lot of audio interfaces are limited on inputs and outputs, but if you look at the bottom, that's a Motu. Alright, that has, I think, what is it, 16 in and 16 out. You could do a lot of in and out from that, but you got to also remember, what are you going in and out from? You're going in and out from the computer, so whatever's in the computer or being recorded into it is being digitized. If you have analog on it before it goes in, then that shit is being recorded with the analog coding. There is no degradation. The analog is the color. You cannot erase that because you have recorded that on, you know what I mean? Like, you recorded that live. You went through the preamp color live. You went through the EQ and the compressor that was a tube optical or something. You went through that live. You can no longer remove that like a plug-in on like the virtual stuff. You see what I mean? So the analog is a more I won't want to say a more solid and you, it's like a more solid process, and it cannot be undone. It's set in stone, right? But with a plug-in, you can just drag it on, you bypass it and all that. But you can bypass the stuff to the analog. But if you didn't have it bypassed when you recorded it, you know, that's hardlined it. But now you have that color. But that same color is going into the digital world, and yeah, it may be getting digitized, and some of that color is getting lost. Why? Because it's going from analog to digital. You know that there's a conversion, but that's why they have the converters. But you have to understand, the very first time you record something, if you recorded it bad, then it is bad and it sounded like shit then. The quality of the recording is how you make it. Let me catch you on the flip. I'm going to get right back to you. We'll continue on. I want to make these tapes short and we'll get back into it. It's really simple. People complicate audio a lot. They overcomplicate the process, and things that are very mystified, they need to be explained and sat on the table to where a kindergarten kid can understand this stuff. All right, I'll catch you in 2 seconds.